Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here, and welcome to my review for Mighty Morphin. Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here, and welcome to my review for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 35. We're still beyond the grid. This issue is special because it is the origins of the Dark Ranger, aka Heckyl from Dino Charge. You know, this was kind of a big deal because the Death Ryuger suit from Kyuger got skipped over for various reasons within the main series, but we finally got it made official part of Power Rangers, starting with, you know, Beyond the Grid and Shattered Grid. So super cool. Just a quick side note, I haven't been covering the comics week to week because I feel like people just aren't that interested in seeing those videos. So I'm going to kind of review them now largely by arcs, unless it's something special like this where I really wanted to talk about, you know, like a special like event like this. But otherwise I'm going to review them by arcs. So when Beyond the Grid's done, I'll do a full review on that, and I'm going to do, or I might have already done depending on what posting order happens, but like reviewing the color swap arc on Go-Go. Just update for those of you that did follow my comic reviews. So anyway, I was quite looking forward to this issue. I've definitely been iffy on Beyond the Grid. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the review, but this is probably one of the things I was looking forward to most about Beyond the Grid once we learned it was happening, because one of the things I did really like about Dino Charge was the mythology. I personally really liked Heckyl a lot. I think he was severely underused. Super exciting to get the Death Ryuger suit, so a lot of reasons to be excited, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to take more advantage of Heckyl's character, possibly expand on my uneven hoodie straps, which are bothering me. You'll thank me later. There you go. And it's still uneven. Anyway, and maybe even expand on the Dino Charge lore. So I think this issue was solid. There was definitely stuff I liked about it. There was problems I had with it. But basically, to sort of summarize review, you kind of start with the scene of Heckyl, Ranger Slayer Kim, and Cam all on, almost at the boat, but you know, on the ship, the Promethea, just kind of talking, and Heckyl's like, hey Kim, remember when you asked, you good? Like, you know how when you see people like, you good? And like, yeah, I'm good. And he's like, well, I'm not. And he's like, you know, I just meant that as a courtesy. He's like, but I really need to tell you. Like, that was weird. And I have to say, I'm usually not one to call this out because it never really bothers me that much depending on the situation, but the dialogue in Beyond the Grid is super spotty. And the scene that led into, like, him talking about what's going to lead to the flashback was super weird. Like, it was so clunky, and it was like, what, as the kids say, is up? Remember when you said you good? Me not good. Let me tell you story. Like, it wasn't that bad, but it was like weird. But then we get into like the flashback of basically picking up where Dino Supercharge left off, with Heckyl's training under Zeno Wing. He's back on Sentai 6, and he's learning how to keep, like, to be a keeper and to keep the Dark Energy Gem without splitting into snide. Like, Zeno Wing can basically keep it in control, and he's teaching Heckyl how to do that, and you know how to keep Sentai 6 safe. I was a little confused for a second because, you know, in Dino Charge, Sentai 6 was destroyed / overrun by Arcanon when he got the Dark Energy Gem, and I'm like, why has that not happened? But then I remember Dino Charge reset it, because I keep forgetting that, like, all that stuff with Heckyl happened in between when Keeper landed on Earth and when Dino Charge events actually started. But, like, the timeline's been reset by the Supercharge finale, so it's a little timey-wimey and confusing. But basically, you know, he has a chance to basically say the word basically a lot, but, you know, go back in time and fix things, like, before they happen. He's doing, like, an Edge of Tomorrow. So, so the idea is they know Arcanon's coming, they know that they're coming for the Dark Energy Gem, but the people of Sentai 6, to look like they're from Fillory, don't want to militarize, more or less, or fight. They're like, well, if we defend ourselves by fighting, we'll ruin what we are. Oh, okay, so you just want to die then. And, like, it's really honestly stupid. It kind of reminds me of how in the new Star Wars stuff, like, part of the reason the New Republic went down is they didn't want to militarize much because they didn't want to become the Empire, even though that's how the Old Republic got in trouble, because they didn't have a military, and then Palpatine was like, hey, here's the clone troopers, what could go wrong? It just seems stupid. It's like, it's your own fault. And so basically Zeno Wing and these guys on Sentai 6 thought that by fighting or creating some sort of fighting force like you've never seen before, they would ruin who they were, which is apparently just as bad as the planet being destroyed. And so there was this dilemma about that, and Heckyl's like, well, hey, what if I make a Morpher and become a Ranger and defend it, you know? And they're like, no, you can't do that, because, yeah, it was really dumb reasoning. And I like the way they went into Heckyl's character being worried about and just kind of constantly living with the fear of splitting into Snide again because he hated what had happened to him. And I like that aspect of the character. I thought it was weird that, like, well, not weird, but just ill-explained that, this is why I was hoping that this issue would dive more into the Dino Charge mythology, because like the Energems, seemingly what made them so special, or one of the things, is that they could just create a whole Ranger system out of nothing. Like, that's the way I interpreted it. It's like, okay, it sampled the T-Rex, now it's created a whole Ranger system with powers and Zords. Well, no, the Zords were created by Xenowing, but you know what I mean. And so, but the Dark Energem can't do that. So Heckyl has to create a power on it using Xenowing's Morpher. Like, that's why I thought it should have been better explained. I really want a whole issue or an annual story just dedicated to learning about the Energems, because I thought that idea was cool. Like, that maybe that's why they're so sought after, excuse me, is because they can create a whole Ranger system out of thin air like that. I mean, obviously Kendall helped with this stuff, but yeah, so he had to create a system out of it, and he kind of did that in secret, and then when Arcanon comes, he basically risks it all to use the Dark Energem to become Dark Ranger, and it's seemingly like a proto version. Like, maybe it was Kyoryu Navy's suit, I couldn't tell. Like, some of the art looked cool, but the art in this series is so weird and distorted that I couldn't tell. I'm like, is this supposed to be Kyoryu Navy's suit or something different? But it seemingly wasn't quite full-on Death Ryuger. So he risks it all, goes out, destroys Arcanon, but then the Dark Energem starts damaging him and taking him over again. But Xenowing comes out with some spells, which I appreciate that they have the consistency of the spells looking kind of like Mystic Force stuff, very Doctor Strange spell circle-y. He basically uses this spell and sacrifices himself to heal Heckyl, somehow, you know, stopping the Dark Energem from corrupting him, and it seems to solidify or finish or cure the suit to look like this, to look like the Death Ryuger suit, which I think is cool. It's kind of a cool way of, like, now that this suit will remind him of his relationship with Xenowing and his sacrifice. So I liked that bit. Although Xenowing never transformed, he could have helped, even though he technically shouldn't have powers because they erased all the events which gave them the Dino-based powers, but the other Dino Charge Rangers have them anyway. Timey-wimey again. But I did like that. It was kind of a shame to see Xenowing go out, just because he was probably one of my more favorite characters in that series, even though he was in it very little. But I thought it was a cool way to sort of give an origin to the full evolved suit and potentially use the Kyoryu Navy one. It might, I can't tell, to be honest. Maybe I'm just dumb, but some of the art is just so distorted. I think it was based on that idea of Kyoryu Navy, maybe. Anyway, I keep talking about Kyoryu Navy. But I liked that bit, but then, here's the thing. There was a couple issues I had with it. The main one, in terms of just a logic standpoint, is that he's telling this story to his friends from the perspective that he feels guilty for what he did on Sentai 6. And even after he defeats Arcanon and Xenowing sacrifices himself, he says, like, I can't go back there now after what I've done. And then after that is when he heard Zordon's call from Shattered Grid. But what does he have to feel guilty about? I mean, he risked his life and his mental sanity for these people who were willing to do nothing. And it's like, okay, maybe the Sentai 6 people didn't want to militarize, sure. But Xenowing's the Silver Ranger. Could he not have morphed and helped? Called some other Rangers? Anything? Because their basic solution was to hide the planet. And Heckyl wound up drawing them there by creating this Morpher. So that's maybe the only thing I feel he has to feel guilty about. But I don't think he needs to feel guilty about becoming the Dark Ranger and saving everyone, because he eliminated the threat. Now it's done, you know? Sometimes you just pull a Damon Salvatore. Don't mind being the bad guy. Someone's got to fill that role and get things done. And that, I don't know, that bothered me a little bit, because I think that was a true heroic sacrifice. I mean, he was so tortured by the idea of becoming Snide again, but he was willing to risk it to save Sentai 6 and put an end to that threat forever. And like I said, the only thing I think he has to feel guilty about is maybe the fact that he drew Arcanon there, but still this Dark Ranger bit was being proactive, and I kind of understand what they were going for with them not wanting to destroy the core of who their people are, but I think there was a solution where they could find a way to help themselves without being stupid. And so I think Heckyl made a heroic decision, and I don't think that he should have felt like he couldn't go back home, because ultimately he made a pretty, you know, like I said, self-sacrificing decision for these people, and I think that was kind of dumb. And, you know, I think it was some cool stuff for his character. Not as much as I would have liked. I think it could have been better, but I just as much wanted some more info on the lore about it. Like, you know, I wanted to know more about how the Energems work. Like, why can't the Dark Energem create powers? Like, you know, I did kind of like that they used the not Zeltrax suit from the Dino team up for Snide, but you know, I have to agree with my buddy Kevin Crayuzio that like it would have been cool if this was essentially Snide, because then it's like the Dark Ranger powers were also created by an Energem. But like, why can't it create Ranger powers? And okay, so he has to create them using Xenowing's Morpher. Why is it Dino based? Because it was always inferred that the reason that Energem powers became dinosaur based was because they bonded with the dinosaurs. And to our knowledge, the Dark Energem never came in contact with the dinosaur, much less the Spinozord, which is shown to be his Zord during Beyond the Grid. So how is it tied to the Zord that Shelby created? Is it because Xenowing helped it and he had some Zord residue on him when he touched him or something? I don't know. Like, I'm a geek about that stuff, and to me, sometimes learning the powers is such an interesting thing, and also when it's glossed over, it just bothers me because there's always this gnawing thing in the back of my head. So I am disappointed that we didn't get just as much about the powers themselves as we did Heckyl, because I thought that would be really cool, especially like in some of the early PR comic stuff in Shattered Grid and in Go-Go. We get these cool backstory bits, which I think enhance it. So I was a little let down by that, but I still think it was cool that he got his own issue. There was stuff I liked about it. I think they did some cool stuff with the backstory of his character. But I think, like a lot of stuff with Beyond the Grid, I feel it could have been so much more. I'd probably give it a 7. I think it's worth a read, and I think it was neat to do. And it's not like it was bad. There was cool stuff in it, but I think there was a lot of missed potential and some weird logic there. And I still think that the Beyond the Grids is so inconsistently clunky, which is weird. Which is what I was gonna say, is that it's been really just a weird one for me, so it'll be interesting when I get to the series arc. And I feel I've been a little bit lenient on it, and looking forward to it a little bit more in some cases, just because we've been in such a stale state in the franchise that I think it's so cool we're doing stuff like this, you know, and taking advantage of the lore, but it hasn't been the greatest, and I'm kind of looking forward to moving on to the next arc. But like I said, I'll be back if we do any specific events like this that are worthy of a review, and, you know, I'll do them by arcs. But anyway, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and of course, don't forget to climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for all my videos. Till next time, Dawson Rider, signing out.